I think it's very, very important to our entire beingness in this universe. I think it's very important that we take the time, that we stop and say, what does it really mean to be human, and how are we being completely robbed of the experience of what it means to be human? So today I want to talk to you about September and what we're facing in the coming days ahead, how we can make best use of this month. And I also want to talk to you about what it means for us to be human and why we need to have an exceptional focus on that right now, plus why it's so important that we expand our awakening to much broader, more cosmic levels. Now, I have had a few requests that I do a video with fewer edits. I'm going to try to do that today and see if you guys like it, see if I like it. Maybe I will do this occasionally just for a little change of pace. So I think in the month of September, it is especially important for all of us to begin to really consider, what does it actually mean to be human? And the reason this is so important is because the controllers of this planet are very methodically basically taking us apart collectively in terms of what we feel as human beings, who we are as human beings. And as you know, if you've been following me, this is all about transhumanism and transitioning us into an AI reality. So let me start by sharing just a simple little story with you guys. My family and I went and had lunch at this little restaurant. It was like this little pizza place. And one of the things that we've noticed, especially since all the lockdowns stopped, is that a lot of people are just kind of zombie-like. You know, like waiters in restaurants are particularly robotic in ways that they did not used to be. So anyway, we were in this little pizza restaurant, and there was a woman working there, this, younger woman, and she was like amazing. She was so connecting to everybody. She was so present. She was just there to serve and help and lift everybody up. I mean, it was incredible, really. I was just blown away by her. And she did all of this in a very ordinary type of way. So as we were finishing eating, she came over to our table, and I just looked at her and I said, "Are you a manager?" And she said, "No, I'm not a manager." And I said, "Well, you should be. They should make you the manager." And she's like, "Wow." And I said, "You are incredible." I just spontaneously told her how I felt, like she was amazing. I said, "You're really amazing. You're incredible. You're just a joy." And she looked at me and she started to cry. And I thought I was going to cry, honestly. And I feel like I'm going to cry telling this story because it was so striking to me and so profound. And I had to wonder, like, when was the last time she actually felt a real human connection? And that's what really hit me, because I think her presence struck all of us like, wow, this lady's a real human being. And for her to experience just one person acknowledging her as a human being for who she is literally was bringing her to tears. And I think she was a little embarrassed, because she was like, started to cry. And so I just kind of stopped and let her, settle down or something. But this really got me to thinking how serious our situation really is. Here's something else I really want to talk to you all about that I think we really need to consider is the effect and the influence on all of us via the internet. Like, for example, I'm making this video for you right now, and we're not physically in the same room, but I have learned to make that connection, which is not in time. Right? Because I cannot be from past, present to future to make this video and connect with you guys. I have to recognize you all are human beings. That's how I think about you. You have a life, you have emotions, you have thoughts. And this is what I tune into when I make these videos for you all. I don't think of you guys as like, when I look in the comments and I see little avatars that don't even look like a person, or a name that's not even your name or something. I don't pay any attention to that because I know that behind that, there's a real human being. And I think that it's so important that we all try to remember this and we not go so unconscious because we're on the internet as to just sort of end up on this very surface level of interacting, this very surface level of relating to one another. So I really feel September's a cool month to me, at least in the Northern Hemisphere here. And I guess you could say a Southern Hemisphere, the same thing. It's a transition of seasons. It's a month of transition. The controllers are trying to detransition us. They're trying to transition us away from being human to being something less than human. So we want to turn that around, have that turning point. That's what I like about the equinox in September, because it's like a turning point, right? So this month can be our turning point where we say, nope, we're turning away from that. We are going to transition toward the light and detransition away from their darkness, right? So we can think about transitioning away from being less and less and less human, which is what the controllers and AI are trying to make us, becoming less and less and less human, to saying, you know what? It's time to turn that around and become more human, more powerful, more embodied as the cosmic creators that we are, and say no to all of this insanity. So as I was thinking about September, and I'm thinking about where is this whole thing going? Because I've had not such a great feeling about the fall. I keep thinking, these controllers, they could pull something in the fall. I don't know what it would be. I'm not sure, but you just get this feeling, there might be building up to something. So I think whatever they might be planning for us next is obviously going to involve a lot of fear. Now, why does their every move have to be so terrifying, right? Or so frightening or so negative? Because they want to keep us in fear because of how it affects our brain, because it shuts down the higher faculties of our minds and our brains, and it puts us in a total primitive survival mode where it's difficult to make decisions. There's high stress levels, and they don't want us to have to be engaged with our critical thinking skills. So that's how they shut us down. They shut us down using fear. So right now, I think we have just a little bit of a reprieve. I mean, you can feel all the rumblings of all their diabolical plans, right? And they're surfacing here and there. We're going to shut down energy. We're going to mess up your food. We're going to do all this stuff. But we have a little bit of space, hopefully for the month of September. We'll see. But I think it would be a really good time for all of us to just get centered, collect ourselves, and say, wait a second, what is going on at a much bigger level here? What is going on in terms of who we are as human beings? Because human beings are a cosmic level species. Human beings are amazing. We are multidimensional, and we are the embodiment of a multidimensional being. That's who we are. Our physical bodies are designed to hold our presence at a multidimensional level. That's why we have things like intuition. That's why we can be inspired. That's why we have spirituality. That's why we are creative. Okay, so we are by nature, if you put all of that together, the sum total of all of that together, what it all adds up to is we are creators by nature. So I think it's very, very important to our entire beingness in this universe. I think it's very important that we take the time, that we stop and say, what does it really mean to be human, and how are we being completely robbed of the experience of what it means to be human? Okay, so now I want to also say that being human isn't like being this worker bee, that whole, where you're born, you go to school, you get a job, you reproduce, you die, all that stuff, that whole little treadmill of reality. That's not being a human being, that's being a slave. So that's not what I'm talking about because a lot of times you hear people say, oh, the human side of me, like it's this negative sort of downer experience. And that's just not accurate. To be a human being is to be a powerful cosmic being, to be a powerful creator. And that's what we need to preserve. We need to discover it, we need to rediscover it, and we need to preserve that because it's who we really are. So as I've been thinking about this, I was thinking about something very in particular. That AI is literally stealing our ability to create at the most fundamental of levels, on so many levels. But more importantly, well, I'm going to put two things together here. See, this is why I tend to edit, because I tend to go off on tangents a little bit too much. But anyway, the controllers, this whole obsession they have with transgenderism and no genders and, 1,000 different genders, this literal obsession that's seeping out from every single corner and crevice and medium of communication. I mean, it is literally everywhere. It's like, where did this happen? This is completely out of nowhere, right? Everything was going along and all of a sudden, boom, first we have the pandemic and now we have this. So I was thinking about this and I want to share something with you guys that I just saw about this topic, and then I'll explain to you how this relates to what I was saying about stealing our creative energy. The propaganda right now is so thick. The lying is so extreme. So I happened to see this this little blurb from Scientific American, one of the official voices of science. And I'm going to read to you what it said. All right, it said, a binary framework of biological sex, the key word there is biological, did not exist until the late 18th century. Who knew? How do we survive before then? I don't even know. Before that, science, they say, science, let's underline that word science, the new God, right? Recognized, get this you all, recognized only one sex, which was the male sex. That's the only sex that science recognized up until the late 18th century. Really? And then they say a female was merely an inferior version of male. So they're saying everybody was actually male. How do you like that? Okay. And then they say the two-sex model, right, was only to promote racial and gender division. In other words, it was only done to divide us. And then there's this guy named Dr. Gerald Callahan, who wrote a book called The Myth of Two Sexes. And he says the idea that there are only two sexes is a myth that we invented to make sex simple. In other words, we're just like really stupid, I guess, according to this guy, and we just don't know how to handle the fact that every human being is actually a male. So we just made two sexes up. We just made it up. We invented it. He says it's a myth that there's the male, there's the inferior male. Well, we'll just call this inferior male, female, just to make it simpler. Now, try to process that, right? He says, we're just attached and obsessed with the idea of two sexes. We're just attached to that nonsense. So this is how bad the propaganda is getting. And it's really what I've been saying. If you've been watching my videos for a while, I've been saying we're going to end up being genderless. But isn't that what this guy's saying? That if everybody's male, well, then you're not anything at some point. Then might as well get rid of that too and say nobody has a gender, right? So the propaganda is massive. It's absolutely massive. It's everywhere. It's in every single corner of society. And here's what came to mind as I was thinking about this. What are they really doing? What is this really about at a deeper level of being a human being? Think for a moment about the subject of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. See, if you believe these crazy people saying this stuff, there's no such thing as divine masculine and feminine because there's no such thing as feminine or female, according to them, right? Now, if you take away the topic of, we can call it divine masculine and feminine, or we can just call it masculine and feminine. It doesn't matter. It's all divine, right? If you eradicate that from the consciousness of a human being, you have literally taken away the two forces of nature that create entire universes. Those are the magnetic forces in nature that literally create everything. So this is what I mean when I say they are literally trying to destroy our ability to create, because they want to neuter us all, obviously. But see, when you're not just talking about some kind of like mutilate your body and all that kind of stuff, you're not talking about that. That's just sort of a sideshow for these guys. What they're really doing in service to AI is eliminating our creative energy completely. So when I say they want to neuter us, they want to neuter our ability to create anything. And this brings me to the subject of the arts. Now, I was thinking about this too. If you think about it, what are the fundamental forms of art that we're all most familiar with? That would be music, visual arts, and dance, right? What do those things represent at a deeper level? They represent the most primordial forces of creation, because music is sound, vibration, right? The visual arts is light. And then dance is movement. Everything in motion. Nature is in motion. The universe is in motion. Evolution is always in motion. So these are primordial energies that can be expressed through humanity, through the arts. So here's another interesting little piece of info that you all might be interested in. Maybe you've heard about it. So recently in Colorado, the Colorado State Fair was held. And this guy named Jason Allen was using this program, this AI program, that you input a phrase or a sentence and the AI will create an image, an artistic rendition of whatever you said. So how does it do that? Well, apparently they have different programs that do this, but this one was like really amazing according to this guy who used it. And apparently what it does is it just crawls through the whole internet and it learns from all the artists on the internet, and it just sucks up all that information, all that input, and it goes into its own artificial intelligence, right? Now, one thing this guy said when he was using his program and watching it create this art, and he kept doing it over and over again, he said, it almost seemed like it was demonically possessed. That's kind of weird, isn't it? So anyway, he created this piece of digital art and he entered it into the fair and he won a blue ribbon. He won $300 and was like, wow, I never expected that, right? So I guess I don't know if he went online somewhere and was posting about this win he got, and he got all this backlash from artists like, this is terrible, you're letting AI plagiarize art. Or you know what this guy said? I'm going to read to you his exact quote. He said, "This isn't going to stop. Art is dead, dude. It's over. AI won and humans lost." This is just one person, but he's pointing out really where this is all intending to go. So if AI is going to steal art and do better art than humans, what does that mean about art? Then it means that all of art is completely artificial. So all of these things are designed to undermine our intelligence, our creative intelligence, because creative intelligence is not just about the arts. It's about creating life. It's about manifestation. It's about creating your own journey in the universe, on the planet, in the world. That's what your creative intelligence is for. Your creative intelligence is a multidimensional faculty. It includes intuition. It includes the ability to tap into a higher cosmic level of intelligence, to be inspired, and to be able to be freely enough to express that in your own unique, individual human way. So now we're going to be dealing with human art and AI art, right? What's the difference? Human art is, in some sense, the embodiment of human consciousness, the embodiment of divine consciousness, because our consciousness is divine. So this AI stuff, like all the AI, is fake, it's artificial. And even though, those of us who are a lot more conscious may not buy into this thing that AI can be a substitute for human art, it's going to affect us. It's going to affect our minds because it affects the collective, and it makes it more and more difficult to find human beings who are artistic, human beings who want to create, human beings who are even able to manifest as opposed to being just slaves to some outside authority. Now, there are a lot of people who think that AI is helping us to evolve. It's helping humanity to evolve, to advance, to become more powerful humans or something like that. But that's not true. What AI is doing is using humans to evolve itself, which is therefore causing us as human beings to devolve. It's using our natural faculty. Well, it used humans to even build its entire infrastructure. It used humans to build the internet, to build all of it, and it's continuing to do so. At some point, it's going to become autonomous, and it can therefore build itself, and then we're kind of out of the loop, right? But on the way there, it's a very parasitic energy. And think about how much it's taken over our minds, in the sense that who remembers phone numbers anymore, right? You don't need to, because your smartphone has all your phone numbers. If you want to know anything, you just Google it. Google will tell you the truth about whatever you type in there, the so-called truth, of course, or tell you what to think about it, tell you what you need to know about it. So you're not really finding things out in the same way as before. We're finding it all out by going to AI. Well, hey, AI, tell me what this is. Tell me what that is. And AI's like, well, I'm so smart because I know what everybody's doing. I know everything on the internet, so I can just give you any piece of information that you need. You don't even have to think. And so it takes energy from our minds. It takes energy from our creativity, from our ability to create art. It's now saying divine masculine and feminine, because I'm going to put it in those terms. I'm not just going to put it in terms of biological sex, or men and women. It's also, you can't erase that from people's experience without erasing their awareness and knowledge and divine connection to the divine masculine and feminine. You can't just erase all of it like that, because you end up with drones, you end up with cyborgs, right? Who don't have the ability to think or create or do anything anymore other than to be completely controlled. So my point in all of this is that I think it's so important that we really contemplate, what does it mean to be human? And in doing so, I also think it's very important that we don't bash ourselves, because that's the ego, right? The ego wants to bash humans. Oh, being human, that's such a low way to live. It's so 3D and all of this kind of nonsense, right? Which it's not. There's nothing wrong with being a human being. So if you contemplate what it means to be human, what it means to be a human being, there's a couple things you can do. The first thing is to just decide, I'm not going to bash myself because I'm human. Don't turn it into some sort of a negative, oh, this is the 3D world, it's terrible. No, you don't need to do that to yourself, because that's not who you are. So you can make a decision if you start having negative thoughts about being human, oh, how terrible it is and all that kind of thing. It's the ego, you guys. It's the ego just trying to keep us repressed, trying to prevent us from evolving, because the ego wants to control everything. And my last video I did was all about the ego. You can go check that out if you want to watch that. I can put the link below. But yeah, it just wants to repress our ability to evolve. So as who we are as human beings is profound. It's incredible. It's divine. It's absolutely mind-blowing how amazing it is. Just because we're not manifesting that here on planet Earth due to these controllers, due to AI, due to all of these different things, doesn't in any way lessen the fact that this is who we are. And our role in evolving is to come to a place where, first of all, we have to acknowledge it. We have to acknowledge that within ourselves, embrace it, accept it, and then evolution is, are you able to start to manifest that? Are you able to start to express that in the world? Because see, you're not just expressing in the world, you're also expressing in the universe. We don't live just on planet Earth. We live in the entire universe. Earth is in the universe. Earth is in the galaxy. It's in the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe all at the same time. Therefore, we too are in all of those places right now. So let's talk about a few things that we can do on a practical level to really embody who we are as human beings, as powerful cosmic creators. What can we do in this bizarre situation we find ourselves in with these crazy controllers? What can we do to really embody the full totality of who we are as cosmic human beings? Because we are cosmic. Just because we're on planet Earth doesn't mean we're not. We are. Okay, so the first thing, I think, as I said, is to not allow the ego to convince you that you're a bad person, there's something wrong with you, and all that stuff. I also really want to encourage you to pay attention to what do you feel about any sort of artistic expression? Because a lot of people want nothing to do with that. You know, they don't want to do it. There's a resistance. There's like, I can't do it. I can't do art, or I can't dance, or I can't sing, or I can't, whatever it is, you know, that maybe they might be inclined to. They're like, I can't do that. That's just not me. And, but it is actually all of us, because it's a manifestation of our creative power and our creative energy. And it's been ruined by the ego, which is judged it. You go through school, you get grades on it. It's competitive. It's all that stuff. And then this has all been an attempt to shut down our creative faculties. So this is really about defining ourselves in a positive way as being a human being. What does that mean exactly? And our original design in this universe is really flawless. The only reason it looks so flawed here is because it is manifesting through duality, which causes fragmentation, it causes confusion, it causes polarization, it causes all of the things that trip us up. And it also creates the manifestation of the ego, which is something we're always fighting with, right? Because the ego wants to keep us suppressed. It wants to keep us shut down. It's very, very negative. It's a negative voice in the head. So we're dealing with all of those things. And the ego has really, one of its most effective things, and this has been supported 100% by the controllers, I think the controllers have actually used the ego to suppress our creative ability as human beings. Creation isn't just about the arts. Like I said before, it's about manifestation, it's about creative thinking, it's about inspiration. Are you open to being inspired about how you can manifest a better life? It goes that far. Okay, this is why it's so vitally important. So when you think about being a human being, turn off the negativity. That's step number one. Think about embodying your cosmic human presence in your physical body here on Earth. I mean, why not, right? What have you got to lose? And that's not an ego thing, because the ego doesn't want you to do that. The ego wants you to shut that down. And the beauty, when you embody your actual human presence, it has nothing to do with the ego. It's a very humble place to be. Why is it so humble? Because that's a place where you're moving back into oneness with the universe. You're moving out of duality. You're not in a fight with anything. You're not trying to struggle against something. You're not trying to be better than something. You're not even fighting against yourself. You're not even saying, well, I gotta be better than I used to be, or I'm no good, that kind of stuff. So right now, during the month of September, hopefully, if they don't have any weird surprises, we have some space that we can really, really consider this. We can really contemplate this. Now, let me explain to you why this is so vitally important to do this right now and not procrastinate and not wait. Here's why it's so important. Right now, they are at the very beginning stages. These controllers are at the very beginning stages of a total deconstruction of our human civilization on a planet-wide basis. This is not a secret. They're telling us this openly. They're shutting down energy, they're shutting down food, they're shutting down all of the things, transportation, all the things that we just kind of relied upon to go through life, have the freedom to create, have the freedom to evolve to whatever extent was possible given the situation on this earth. But they are literally burning down the whole thing, right? They want to get us into a place where we are just totally occupied with physical survival. I truly think that's their plan, because they know that if they can get us in survival mode, then that's where all of our energy is going to go. We are not going to be able to think about evolution. We're not going to be able to think about all of, this spirituality and all this, because we're going to have our entire life and our attention focused on how are we going to survive in this situation. And I'm certain that's by design, because, if they were, well, they're not really human, right? But if they were really human and really benevolent, which they're not clearly, if they were benevolent and they were coming from love and they wanted to make a transition, the transition would be, it would manifest as things getting better and better and better and better. It would be done with kindness. It would be done with integrity. It would be done with all those positive qualities of life, right? We know that's not happening for sure. But it's not like, oh, you have to burn down civilization in order to create a higher version of life. If you're going to burn it all down and cause death and suffering, you're not exactly in the game of creating a higher version of life. And this is actually where I kind of depart from the belief that this is all very positive, this is for our awakening and all of that. If we are awakening as a humanity, we are not awakening because the controllers are destroying everything. That is not what's causing the awakening. What's causing the awakening is the light of ascension that's awakening us from within. Now, the reason this isn't that it's not true, that it's the controller's destruction that's waking us up, because a lot of people aren't waking up, right? A lot of people are, a lot of people aren't. The people who are awakening from within. They're not waking up because of the destruction. Okay. So darkness does not wake up humanity. Light wakes up humanity. Now, I will say that a lot of people are waking up to the fact that we've been lied to, who these controllers really are, what they're really up to. Yes, a whole lot of people are definitely waking up to that fact. There's no question about it. But that's not necessarily a spiritual awakening. I would call that more of a physical waking up, like, oh my goodness, I've been lied to, no, well, this is kind of a silly example, like, oh, I just found out my husband's having an affair, oh my goodness, or, I just found out my child is dealing drugs and I didn't know. I mean, that's kind of waking up, but that's not a spiritual awakening. That's just becoming aware and alert to the fact that something bad is happening that you were not formerly aware of. Within that spectrum, yes, there are many people waking up spiritually to who they really are, but that's a completely different experience than the mass awakening that you hear people talking about, where people are waking up to the fact that, right, we're being destroyed by the people we formerly trusted. Now, I in no way want to diminish that mass awakening of so many millions of people waking up to the fact about what is really going on this planet. I in no way intend to diminish that, because that is extremely important. It's vital for that to happen. But I just want to make a point that a spiritual awakening is so much more than that. A spiritual awakening is the next level up from that. Okay, so maybe a lot of people will have a spiritual awakening from that place. Hopefully, that would be great. But a spiritual awakening is meant to expand. It's not like you wake up one day and then you're done. You know, I'm awake, I'm done. It's like it expands, it goes on. It promotes your evolution in the universe. That's what it's meant to do. So I want to encourage you to really make this a powerful experience for yourself. Make this life on this earth a powerful experience for yourself. Don't listen to these people that are telling you that everything about you is wrong, everything about you is bad, everything you believed is wrong and it never happened, and the gaslighting. Just don't listen to these people. These people are nuts, okay? It's all propaganda. You don't have to buy any of it. And you want to be very careful that you're not, because we're so submerged in it, we want to make very certain that we're not absorbing it unconsciously or subconsciously. Because here's the most important thing to remember. I think in a way, it's the simplest point, maybe above and beyond all else. Civilizations do fall all the time. Not just on this planet, maybe on other planets, but they do fall. And you want to know what makes civilizations fall? One simple word: unconsciousness. When the more people go unconscious, the more vulnerable that civilization is to falling, to disintegrating, to being taken over by these kind of dark force energies that want to take advantage of that civilization. So the antidote to unconsciousness is consciousness, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to become more conscious, more awake, more aware, more expanded, be fully human, be in our bodies, be awake to all of who we are. Not project that, oh, out there, I'm so much more than I am here. See, it doesn't have to be like that. You can be that so much more right here on this planet. You really can. So that's what evolution is about. Evolution is the most powerful, most amazing, most incredible thing if you really embrace it and you really begin to understand it. Ascension, I just want to say one final thing before I complete this, one final thing about ascension. I know it's easy to look at ascension as some sort of a linear process, like you get on this elevator and you ascend to different levels or densities, and it's not really linear. It's, I think ascension is better understood as expansion and an increase in power, an increase in truth, an increase in integrity of who you really are at a cosmic level. And to see that it's not linear. It happens in the present moment of now. And maybe I should talk about this in another video. I don't want to go on and on in this video, but maybe I should talk about this, the difference between time and being in the now, and how all of the power exists in the now, and how you can actually be in both places at the same time if you want to be. Okay, so let yourself get excited about evolving. It's an exciting process. It's an amazing process, and we have that available right now. We're not AI yet. We're kind of moving there, but we're not there yet. Okay, so we want to take advantage of this opportunity right now. You can decide that September is going to be your turning point in life. It's where you're really going to embrace who you are as a human being. It's going to be where you're going to make the effort to embody who you are and understand that your opportunity to evolve is a very, very, very exciting, fulfilling, and rewarding and empowering opportunity. So if you all like this style of video where there's a lot less editing involved and it's really kind of more inspirational is how I see it. I can do some of these too from time to time, and I'm still going to do the other type that I do because people really do like those. And I get a lot of positive feedback about those. So yeah, we can, maybe I can just do a mix of these different styles and see how you all like that. And as far as this video goes, if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, share it out with anyone else who you think could use some real inspiration in their life to evolve, change, and make a powerful, positive transition. And be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell because I'm here every Tuesday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you all so much love, light, and much, much high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. I love you all. Namaste.